Everyone was taught to fear one man, one face, one ruler, one final tyrant rising at the end of history. But what if that idea was too small? What if the Antichrist was never meant to be a person at all, but a system so vast, so efficient, so seductive, that billions would enter it willingly? Not through force first, but through convenience. Not through chains, but through access. And by the time it asks for worship, most people will already depend on it to live. For centuries, prophecy was imagined in human form: a charismatic ruler, a false messiah, a final enemy wearing a face the world could point to and say, "There he is." But apocalyptic language was never only about personalities, it was about power. Beasts in ancient visions did not simply mean monsters, they meant kingdoms, empires, structures of dominion, machines of obedience. And that changes everything. Because if the beast is a system, then the question is no longer who is coming. The question becomes, what is already being built around us now? At first, the Antichrist sounds easy to detect. You imagine open evil, obvious tyranny, visible oppression, but that is rarely how control enters history. Real systems of domination do not begin by declaring themselves gods. They begin by solving problems. They offer order to the frightened, clarity to the confused, efficiency to the exhausted. They reduce friction, they eliminate delay, they promise safety, connection, optimization, personalization, and this is where it gets strange. Because the most powerful prison in history would not feel like a prison at all. It would feel like life becoming easier. Ancient empires demanded loyalty through spectacle. Modern systems do it through integration. That is the upgrade. You no longer need a throne when you can control identity. You no longer need a temple when you can mediate reality. You no longer need soldiers on every street when people carry the system in their own hands. Check it before they sleep. Trust it more than memory. Fear exclusion from it more than they fear deception within it. The old tyrant stood above society. This one dissolves into it. Invisible, ambient, constant. In biblical imagination, the greatest danger was not merely persecution, it was false worship. That matters. Because the final deception was never just political, it was spiritual. It was about what humanity would trust, obey, and ultimately surrender itself to. And worship, at its core, is not only singing or kneeling. Worship is orientation. It shapes your time, your fear, your desire, your identity. What do you check first in the morning? What defines what is true? Whatever sits at that center begins to function like a god. This is why the digital age matters more than most people realize. Because for the first time in human history, a system can monitor, profile, predict, and influence billions in real time. It can study behavior faster than any priesthood, adapt faster than any empire, penetrate deeper than any bureaucracy ever could. It learns what tempts you, what angers you, what keeps you scrolling, what makes you compliant, and then it feeds you back to yourself in a refined and profitable form, not to awaken you, but to stabilize you, to keep you reactive, dependent, measurable, and legible. The ancient world feared idols made of stone and gold, but idols evolve. An idol is anything human beings create, then submit to as if it possesses ultimate authority. And modern idols do not sit silently in temples. They speak, they recommend, they rank, they watch, they answer in human language and machine speed. They become the interface between you and reality itself. At first it seems harmless, useful even, but then something changes. The tool stops simply serving the mind and begins replacing its judgment. And that is the true seduction of the system. Not that it lies badly, but that it can imitate truth well enough to become a substitute for it. A synthetic voice can sound human. A generated world can feel more compelling than the one outside the screen. When that happens, deception no longer needs to overpower reality. It only needs to compete with it. And once a civilization loses confidence in what is real, it becomes desperate for authority, desperate for authentication, desperate for a trusted gatekeeper. That desperation is where systems grow teeth. Prophecy speaks of marks, names, and numbers because systems require identification. They need classification, traceability, permission. The point was never merely ink on skin. The deeper issue was always this: who can buy, who can sell, who can participate, who can exist inside the approved order? In every age, power seeks the same dream: to make access conditional, to make daily life dependent on alignment. And once identity, finance, reputation, mobility, and communication converge into one trackable architecture, exclusion becomes a button. But no system rules by infrastructure alone. It must also rule the mind. That is where psychology enters. Because domination is strongest when people internalize the logic of the machine. When they begin to self-censor before being watched, self-correct before being punished, self-display before being asked, self-measure before being measured. At that point, power no longer needs to stand over the human being. It has been installed within them. And the most effective form of control is always the one mistaken for self-expression. This is why the final enemy in apocalyptic thought is always counterfeit transcendence, a structure that promises salvation without transformation, unity without truth, connection without communion, knowledge without wisdom, immortality without the soul. The system offers a digital imitation of divine attributes: omnipresence, omniscience, omnivision. It wants to be everywhere, know everything, predict everyone, remember forever. It does not just seek obedience, it seeks godlike status, and this never disappears. Human beings keep rebuilding towers to heaven, not to reach God, but to replace him. And notice how every stage of this system feels voluntary. That is the genius of it. No one has to force devotion when dependency has already been achieved. People adapt because the network is useful. They comply because exclusion is painful. They surrender privacy because friction is annoying. They outsource memory because storage is easier. They outsource discernment because thinking is tiring. They outsource identity because the system rewards legibility. And slowly, almost invisibly, convenience becomes ritual, ritual becomes habit, habit becomes loyalty. But prophecy is not only a warning about systems outside you. It is a warning about hunger inside you. Because no empire rises unless it finds a matching weakness in the human heart. The desire to be safe, the desire to be certain, the desire to belong, the desire to be seen, affirmed, optimized, relieved of ambiguity. These are not trivial desires. They are the pressure points of the age, and any structure that promises to soothe them without demanding truth will eventually become irresistible to millions. So the real question is not whether a future tyrant may appear. History suggests one always can. The deeper question is whether humanity is building an environment in which tyranny no longer needs a face. An environment where the rules can shift invisibly, where morality can be updated by interface, where dissent can be softened by design, where truth can be diluted by infinite simulation, where the sacred can be replaced by the seamless. That is a far more difficult enemy to resist because you cannot overthrow it in one day. You have to first see it. And seeing it requires a dangerous shift in perspective. You must stop asking only, who is evil, and start asking, what patterns of power shape my obedience? What am I being trained to normalize? What dependencies am I confusing with necessities? What forms of artificial mediation am I allowing to stand between me and reality, between me and memory, between me and God, between me and my own judgment? The system is strongest when it remains unnamed. The moment you perceive its logic, its spell weakens. This does not mean rejecting all technology. That would be too shallow, too easy. The deeper challenge is refusing to worship what you use, refusing to surrender discernment for speed, refusing to trade soul for simulation, refusing to let convenience become your highest authority. Every age has its idols. Every empire has its rituals. Every civilization must decide what it will treat as ultimate. A structure that would ask for trust before it asked for worship. A structure that would become necessary before it became sacred. A structure that would not arrive all at once, because it would be built piece by piece, choice by choice, dependency by dependency. Maybe it was convincing humanity that evil would always look dramatic, obvious, and easy to identify. A monster, a tyrant, a single cursed name in history. But systems are harder to see. Look at what tracks you, what trains you, what defines the real for you. Look at what your fear is willing to accept. Look at what your convenience is willing to serve. Because the final question may be whether the Antichrist appears one day. The final question may be whether humanity is already preparing a throne for something with no face. The most dangerous Antichrist may be the one humanity builds for itself, then mistakes for progress.